Bushwhacks were some of the worst days I've ever had in the mountains, or life, really.
Whereas Panther Mountain is totally opposite. It's a mountain on top of a crater.
I think the weather challenges on this incident were particularly difficult.
It was really the development of New York State. Catskills were responsible.
Now you're listening to Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains Podcast.
All right, so welcome to episode 199 tonight. 191, geez. Once again, I'm off today. So 191, Rick Brooks is here to talk about the Hardenbergh passion and other stuff as well. Tad might throw in some little different things in there once in a while. He's got some wild cards going. So
that would be great.
Yeah. Well,
you can reserve judgment on that, Rick. They might be
all right,
great or they might be bloopers. We'll see. Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah. Don't change that dial.
Yeah. So, Rick, welcome to the show. Glad you could join us tonight, sir.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be with you two. And I appreciate all the efforts you put in keeping the Catskill Mountains out there in front of people. So,
right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Definitely an honor to be invited on your podcast.
I would have to say, it's not an honor. Like it's an honor to have you on here because your knowledge of the history of the Catskills, your work in the Catskills as a surveyor and historian, I'm excited to get back into the history of the Catskills. A lot of people don't know about this stuff, and that's why we bring people on like you here to
good.
Yeah.
I know you had my friend Elaine Warfield on a little while ago too, so.
Yeah, she actually she gave me your email and stuff. She was awesome about the Fenwick Lumber Company.
Cool.
Yeah. It was a pretty interesting book she published, and she does credit you with a lot of the information in it.
Yeah. And she only touched half of it, really. I mean, it's quite an incredible.
Yeah, that's why Rick's coming back on the show to talk about Fenwick and maybe Bear Pen.
Ooh.
Oh, I know quite a bit about Bear Pen. Percy Goff was a good friend of mine.
Well then, I guess we're gonna. Well then, just to let you know, Rick, we have the 21st available if you want to come back on and talk about
Christmas edition. We could be Scrooge, Percy Goff. Rick's laughing. Boy, there's quite a story there. So I understand
a story. I even worked on the court case that went all the way to the Third Department appeals. Not with him. I was a survey tech with my uncle Edward, great uncle Edward West.
Who's also part of the Bear Pen trilogy. With I'll throw out another name just to show people I've done my own research. Wayne Graff. Does that ring a bell?
Sure.
Yeah. So, all right. So we got to bring Rick back to talk about Bear Pen in the ski area.
Wayne Graff lived in Spruceton for quite a while.
Yep.
And we still, I think, even last year we were doing cases with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he's still active.
Yeah, he's a pretty interesting fellow, Wayne.
He is pretty interesting. He can be a pain in the ass, much like.
Well, that's he's an attorney, and I guess that's part of the shtick.
That is part of the stick. I know that. All right, so moving on, Killian Jornet, Tad, we have an update, and I was gonna say update, but he's done. He's already freaking finished it.
He's finished. You blink, and the guy's climbed 72 mountains over 14,000 feet without driving a car from one to the other. He did it all pedal power.
31 days.
Yeah.
31 days. He climbed 72 of the highest U.S. mountains in the lower 48. And by all climbing and bike. I mean, it's supported. So he had people along the way, but just to hear the stats on this, and one sec, I took a screenshot of this. So let's check this out. So distance in miles, 3,167, 72 14ers, a total time of activity, 471 hours, and then elevation gain and loss by bike and by foot, 389,432 feet. So, yeah.
Superhuman. Rick, did you know this was going on?
It was covered in porcupine soup a while ago, I think.
Oh, yeah? I
There
don't
was
know
a
what
mention of it, I think.
porcupine
Yeah.
soup is. What's that?
Really, Ted?
Yeah,
What?
I have no idea what it is.
You can't claim yourself a Catskill, guys, and you don't know porcupine soup?
No, I don't.
Isn't
I know
that
what a
off of
porcupine
the
is.
Mountain Eagle, Rick?
Yes. Spin-off of the
Well, there you
Mountain
go.
Eagle, as I understand it.
I got to check out the Mountain Eagle. That's what I'm learning.
Oh, geez, that's where what's his name? Robert Titus posts all of his stuff, does
Yes.
all of his writings and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So he did this 31 days, climbed 72 mountains, over 14,000 peaks. Just unbelievable accomplishment. And the funny thing is, I wrote these notes a week ago, and I was like, update, and then the update was he's finished. And I was like, what the hell?
All right.
Tad, you being a hiker and a cycler, what can you say about this crazy accomplishment?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's a huge endeavor on his part. But even though it was this epic and huge endeavor, this fellow has a tremendous amount of support and sponsorship. So what I looked into, I was interested to see what type of bike he was riding. And it turns out he was riding two different bikes, depending on the terrain that he was covering. A Trek Madone, which is the Trek bicycle company's go fast carbon fiber, high end, I'm going to call it a road racing machine.
Lightweight, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that I don't know what those bikes weigh presently, but I wouldn't be surprised that they're under 16 pounds, maybe under 15 pounds. Predominantly carbon fiber, electronic shifting, disc brakes, the whole kit and caboodle, the type of stuff you'd see in the Tour de France. And then on the rougher terrain, he was riding a Trek Checkpoint, presumably their carbon fiber version of the Checkpoint line, which is for gravel riding. It's got front end suspension, all lightweight, high tech components, electronic shifting, presumably on the one they gave him, disc brakes, the whole 9 yards. So when you hear though that he was riding these two bikes, which presumably in the aggregate it's over $30,000 of bicycle gear.
Yikes.
In order for him to do this, you now are aware that he had road support, right? Somebody is bringing that second bike. If he's on the Madone, riding highways and paved roads, and then he gets to a rough section, like to climb X thousand feet uphill on a gravel road to the trail, somebody's going to hand off the Trek Checkpoint carbon, gravel bike to him, and he's going to use that. And then when he's done doing the mountain segment, he's going to get back on the bike, ride back down, pick up the Trek Madone. So a lot of these logistics, once this thing was in play, I'm sure he had people, a ton of people taking over for him. And right down to the fact that he probably, just like in the Tour de France, he probably had a Trek provided bike mechanic to fix and tune and make sure neither of these bikes was going to break on him along the way. So, with all this support and whatnot, whether he, instead of doing it in 31 days?
31.
Yeah. So if he didn't have all that support, but had some level of support, what would it have been? 35 days?
Do you think?
I don't know. I mean, but 31 days is impressive, but he also, given his fame, is able to get a lot of support for doing this. And I don't think that takes away from his achievement. And one of the things I saw in reading a few articles about this is he just didn't do the bare minimum to climb these 14,000 footers, run back down, hop on the bike, ride to the next one. They give an account where one day he climbs up one of these mountains. He gets to the top, and instead of turning down, he does like this 21-mile mountaintop traverse. Just for shits and giggles.
Just for the hell of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully he didn't cut any switchbacks on that one.
Well, I don't think it was a function of, doing a particular route. Anyway, he got to the top, presumably so long he was, not going into some out of bounds area. I think was kosher for him to do it. So
yeah,
quite an effort on his part.
The logistics alone has got to be fascinating.
Yeah.
To hear the story like unfold, to have him, finally rest and to tell the story of like, when the times he hit snow, when he hit different terrain levels, he finished on Mount Rainier. So Mount Rainier is, I think the top 25% is glacier snow covered all the time. So
it's not like he took a 0 day.
Yeah.
And said, oh, the weather, I'm not going to ride the bike today because, I'm going to get wet riding the bike. And it would be interesting to know to what extent they had to change their route based upon weather conditions and say, oh, you shouldn't go over here the next day or two because of the weather up there. You should head to this, another mountain. Or were they just so constricted by, beating the clock that regardless of the conditions ahead, they just had to grit their teeth and do it?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a documentary coming out soon. Maybe Shai Ben-Dor didn't want to tell us, but maybe that's what he was working
documentary
on.
Or documentary. One or the other.
Documentary.
Yeah, sorry, Rick, we got to bring that about. So amazing accomplishment by Killian. We've been following him for the past couple of weeks, and now he's done. Like, it's just insane to think that to happen. And speaking of the last couple of weeks, last week, Ted, we talked about a rescue going on in the Catskills. We had no clue where it was. They didn't give up much information, stuff like that. And I finally got some information about this. It was at Jimmy Dolan Notch on the Devil's Path. So can totally understand why they would send a helicopter in now, that I still don't.
Seriously? You really? I mean, they sent the helicopter into Jimmy Dolan, but not up where Kate was.
That's very true.
Yeah. Kate took them.
Jimmy Dolan's a pretty steep little notch there. So I don't know what they were doing with the helicopter unless they were dropping some equipment down or something.
And hauling the fellow out.
So Rick, to if you didn't listen to that one episode we talked with a woman who was rescued on top of Drybrook Ridge. She suffered like a fractured ankle. And they had to hauled her off by litter instead of like right in the area. It kind of looked accessible by helicopter, but they did they hauled her off by foot, and it was pretty crazy. And to hear, Jimmy Dolan, you go up from the Roaring Kill. It's an old logging road, correct? Basically.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
still rocky.
It's still rocky and rugged, but it's an old logging road. So they had going up from the Drybrook Ridge had a substantial amount of logging roads, especially going up from the top of it back down as a whole switchback logging road. So it's just that is very good point, Tad.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure they had their reasons.
True. It's, those crews are getting the helicopter, this New York State troopers are getting all sorts of activity this year from the Catskills. They're just like, bring them in. Like, who cares? Like, bring them in. But
they're insanely expensive too once they show up.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I've been a fire chief for a long time, volunteer fire chief, and bringing in a helicopter starts like at $50,000 or something, depending where they go.
Yeah.
Last helicopter transport bill I saw from Orange County to Westchester was like $23,000.
Wow. Amazing.
Right. And they don't even fly you around Manhattan to look at the buildings.
But you get to see Manhattan from the top of there, so I guess.
Yeah.
The good thing is, I wonder where the injury happened, if it was up on part of like Twin, or did it happen in the notch, or the person kind of like
my sense is going to be in the notch proper. I would say unlikely. Yeah. I would think there is coming down Twin. I'm not going to call it scree, but I'm going to call it scree. There's some sections where you run into some loose stone coming down from Twin. I could see somebody rolling an ankle there, and I could see also somebody rolling their ankle coming off of Indian Head and some of those rocky areas, but then just downhill from Dolan Notch proper, where all the signage is. That's where you start running into these rocks that Rick is talking about, the ones that have when we get like thaws or heavy storms, you get a lot of water going through there that's going to take the soil away. So you have more exposed rock that's just prime ankle twisting territory, especially if you've done some hiking, you're a little tired. Next thing you know, snap.
Yeah.
Broke your leg.
Yeah. And, Rick, you previously being a fire chief, you have experienced this kind of stuff, of course, in the Catskill. Where were you a fire chief at?
Well, I started in 1975 in East Jewett, and then when I moved to the metropolis of Tannersville, I was with them.
Nice.
And then I now live down in an area called Clintondale in Ulster County, if you know where that is.
Yep.
I've been a fire chief probably 20 plus years.
Wow.
So you were back in the 70s and stuff like that. Did you deal with stuff like this?
Oh yeah, because the 70s is when the late 70s, early 80s is when the Catskills started getting much more visited by people who wanted to be outdoors and recreate. And the forest rangers at that time didn't have the function or the manpower or the equipment to go in and do these deep rescues. And in fact, there was no GPS back then. So I think every couple of years we were going in to do body recoveries out of airplane crashes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, those airplane crashes happened to like the mid 80s.
Yeah, mid 80s until, right. Navigating by sight, and they're trying to follow the Hudson River, and then they slam into High Peak or something like that.
Wow. Yeah.
So anyway, the forest rangers started a program. They started training us in rappelling and backwoods stuff and helicopter operations. They'd find a ledge someplace, and we'd jump out on the ledge and then go find the wreck.
Wow.
So yeah, a lot of good war stories there.
Well, wow. It looks like Rick is coming on here for another episode.
Yeah. Rick is like going to be the third host of the show.
Right.
He's going to be a regular.
Damn straight.
Yeah. I like the every time that the month has a fifth Tuesday, we'll get Rick on for the fifth Tuesday of the month.
I'm sure the pay is good too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm telling you, man, if you've seen my car, it's 21 years old. So
the Jeep, yeah, rattling, yeah. So also, talking about rescues. The funny thing is, I'll tell you about this on my previous hike. I ran into a rescue when I was out in the Blackhead Range. I'll tell you about it. I don't know. I don't have any more information, but I ran into a bunch of rangers about it, and I'll tell you the story. It's actually very funny. It's very cool.
All right. Well, stay tuned. Go fast forward ahead.
Yeah, don't keep mowing your lawn.
Yeah, right.
All right, so thank you to the monthly supporters, Bob McLinn, Chris Caribbean, Jeff Jotz, Vicky Ferrer, Mikey S., John Comiskey, Summit Seekers, Desert City Radio, Betsy A., Denise W., Vanessa, Jim C., and Eric. You guys, thank you so much for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. We're going to be donating soon, so hopefully we'll see. Tad and I will be doing some brain work and getting some donations going out into the Catskills soon. We'll see where we can. It's probably be mostly my donations, my thoughts, not Tad. Tad will be like, "Yep." So that's cool. See,
we'll do that. Sure.
Yes, I love it. All right, so our amazing sponsors, Outdoor Chronicles Photography. So capture your love story against breathtaking backdrops with Outdoor Chronicles Photography. Molly specializes in adventure couple photography, and she'll immortalize your moments amidst the stunning landscapes of the Catskills, Adirondacks, and White Mountains. She'll craft timeless images that reflect unique bond in nature's grandeur. Embark on an unforgettable photographic journey with Outdoor Chronicles Photography. Don't hesitate to get a hold of Molly on all platforms. Also, discover the wilderness with Trail Brown Project. Our expert-led hiking and backpacking education programs offer unparalleled outdoor experiences. Whether you're a beginner or seasoned adventurer, join us to learn essential skills, explore stunning trails, and connect with nature. Start your journey today with Trail Brown Project and unlock the wonders of the great outdoors. So, Rick, this next section we have is called Are You Really Outdoors? So, if you mention the podcast on one of your hikes through social media, we'll chat about it on the show, and you tag us by typing at ITL Catskill MTM podcast on your post. Rick is writing it down because he knows he's going to do that next time. I've seen your hikes. You've been on some hikes, Rick, but you haven't tagged us. So I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to it. So Farrell Howells did The Devil in a Day with Tales of a Wanderer. Fantastic. Devil in a Day. Tad, I think we should do a single episode about that, The Devil in a Day.
And get some folks on who have done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I've done 2 days, but like a Devil in a Day would be nice.
Yeah. I think I could do The Devil in a Day.
I think
with some conditions, I would need a certain amount of pharmaceuticals, some syringes.
Yeah.
Like I'd have to give my buddy Lance Armstrong a call to get some performance enhancing drugs. But yeah, I could make it happen.
I was going to say every downhill descent, another thing of ibuprofen, up and down. Ibuprofen.
Yeah, well, I would expect Rick to come out and take his old chains from the early 1700s and set up some zip lines for me to go downhill with.
Off the logging trails, he could do his experience of logging stuff with the Fenwick and just be like, oh yeah, right here's a nice chute that they used to have. Go down that.
Yeah, if I pretend to run as I'm zip lining down, does it count as doing the devil in a day?
True.
Yeah, I don't think there's any rules. So
not anymore.
Rules.
Yeah, I could definitely do the devil in a day now that I think about it.
Not on my chains, though. You're not doing that.
Yeah, that would be pretty rough. I'll get some cables.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll get that. So Catskill Mountain Brew, aka Scott, is up in the 40s Adirondacks again, doing his 46er journey. He hasn't been there in I'm pretty sure it was hold on, he recently just tagged us. He just did Street and Nye, got out his first time in a while. It doesn't say his last, and then Phelps and Tabletop as well. So his first time in the Adirondacks in 13 years. So he's out busting some peaks. He's going to get his 46er patch. Hopefully soon, maybe this year, maybe next year. It doesn't matter about the patch, just as long as you enjoy the journey. That's what I say.
For sure.
Chaotic Exotic. Lisa did 19 at Adirondacks, tagging Cliff and Redfield, so she was up there. Seems like a lot of people in the Adirondacks, but hey.
Yeah, but just that's 19 miles, 2 mountains.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun.
Whereas that's almost, you're getting close to doing the devil in a day. With that,
yeah, right? How many?
So,
yeah, it doesn't. I'm sorry.
So
Lisa.
Come to the Catskills where you get more mountain per mile.
Yeah, exactly. See,
same price, more mountain per mile,
and better food and stuff like that. Better food and more stewards.
That's right.
Catskill Mountain Brew. Scott again went up Bearpet and Fly. Said they are doing work on the snowmobile trail, which is interesting. So Tad, I'm very curious. And Rick, you also have some knowledge of the Bearpen area. So that is is it wild forest or it's wild forest, right?
It's wild forest and it's outside the blue line.
Okay, so how do they get permission to do it on the snowmobile trail?
You think they can do it?
Yeah, it's outside the blue line. So when you go to Hunter's Field, you'll see ATV tracks on that.
Sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they could do that.
Yeah, I mean, when you're inside the line versus out, it's like a whole different set of rules.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
But wherever you are, the hike does not count unless you tag us. That's the universal rule.
Correct.
To all hiking. Okay.
And
Rick is smiling. Rick is even getting it now. He's writing it down again. He's like, all right, I'm tagging these guys. Okay.
I'm going to tag you.
Yeah. Off in the woods, Sean did the Westkill loop, went up and over Westkill, then walked back down St. Anne's, the Peak Devil's Path, and then did the walk back to his car back on Spurson. So good job. It's good stuff. Pink Pody 818 Tracy did Hunter and Becker Hollow, then did some of the Berkshires with the Berkshire Nap Scrapers? Nap Scrapers? Is that how you say it? She's
Berkshire Nap Scappers.
Nat Scappers, there we go.
Yeah, she gets around. She's over there, over here, everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
This
next one impresses me.
Yeah. Jim C. did a 10-mile race in Bolton's Landing with 1,500 feet of gain.
Wow.
So Jim is killing it. Jim, I'm sorry. I don't know how old you are, but you are ripping it up. I see him at the hot cocoa run in my town a bunch of times.
Oh, yeah.
And he kills it. I'm just like, Jesus,
what's the hot cocoa run?
It's just a run for the Arc of Otsego in the area to raise money for the Arc of Otsego. It
sounded like you're going down the street, and to run faster, the locals throw hot cocoa at you. That's what I thought.
that would be pretty
Ridiculous.
Dodge it, yeah.
Yeah.
So good job, Jim C.
Waste a good hot cocoa.
Correct. At least at the end, you get hot cocoa. That's the whole thing, and it's provided by Stewart's, I believe.
Good.
So, beyond Blazes, Joanne was out at the Blackhead Range, like a bunch of other people as well. Jeff Schatz also went up Blackhead with Orla, and Tom Hoos was up there with the gang. So apparently, Tom led the hike and was showing up all these places that he knew about, and it's pretty cool. It looked like they had a good time.
Excellent.
Yeah, so just Scat, aka Cat, is at 27 of her 3,500, getting there. 8 more, right? 10 more. Right, 37. She's got to do 37.
Yeah, I'm not sure how people count it these days. I mean, is it just the 3,500 club list, or are you going to throw in South Double Top with that?
True.
There's that one story of a fellow who actually finished when he was sleeping because they delisted South Double Top from the list, like on a certain day. So overnight, when they changed the list, he became a member. What a great way to finish.
Yeah.
Dreaming about hiking someplace else.
Right. So let us know, Kat, when you're on your finish. Maybe we'll join you.
Yeah.
Labradante did Catskill High Peak. So awesome. Red-Handed Adventure Guides was up in the Adirondacks enjoying the views of foliage and stuff like everybody else was. Awesome. The Adirondacks were blooming this week. Everybody was up there. And then Scion 72 Sean was up at Indian Head while crabgrass was invading his lawn.
Wow. That's a shame. That's
outrageous. How can you be mowing your lawn during times like these? You don't have any lawn to mow.
He spent like all summer making sure every blade of grass was perfect, keeping away the crabgrass and the moss and the clover. Then he goes up to Indian Head for a hike to do some peeping. And what happens? The crabgrass just takes over his whole lawn. Oh, well, Sean, better luck next year, buddy. Better luck next year.
Yeah.
Buy a bigger lawnmower.
I agree.
Yeah.
Awesome. So buy us a hard cider to support the show. If you think we're doing a good job and you want to show us support, buy us a coffee, hard cider on buymeacoffee.com. Link is in the show notes, and it's on our link tree in the Instagram, Facebook app. So rate the show. 5 stars is all we accept. It's the best. So please just rate the show. All right. Who's having something to drink tonight? So Rick, I know you said this was the most difficult decision. What did you have?
I chose from Keegan Ales the Hurricane Kitty. It's a India Pale Ale, and it's quite nice. You can see I'm almost all the way through it.
Oh,
this glass is from where did I get this? River Trail Beer Works up in Lake Placid.
Nice.
And, I have a couple more beers with me just in case you guys talk too much.
No,
so you got enough to get you through the break.
Yeah.
Through the halftime. When we hit the intermission, Rick, you'll have to reload.
Yeah, that's I got to reload buddy. Too.
It's like a road crossing on a long hike,
That's good. That's good. What do you think of the Hurricane Kitty? Has you had it before?
Yes, I have.
Nice. It's good.
I enjoy it.
Okay, so Tad, there you go. And you got to get a Hurricane Kitty.
Where do you buy that, Rick? Do you get it right in Kingston at the brewery, or you
can get it right at Kingston? But the problem with that is you tend to sit at the bar, and then everything goes uphill or downhill from there.
That's true.
But it's also most beer stores carry the Keegan line.
Gotcha.
Nice. All right. So excellent. Tad, is this the second week, right?
It's the first Tuesday.
First Tuesday
of the month. So I am dry tonight to support our fellow listeners and hikers who stay on the wagon.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Strong man. I am having a good old rum and Coke. So unfortunately, I had a cider this previous day, and I think that's what's caused some stomach issues.
Huh.
So I've been have on and off stomach issues for the past 3 days. So it's been weird. So I'm just going to stick with rum and Coke.
So this is just giving me a flashback to last week's episode when Stosh told us about that tick
Yeah. So could that be like I
No,
was?
well, I don't know if that's it or not, but what I'm thinking is like last week, my whole hike this past week, all I'm thinking about is you're cracking fucking ticks, and am I going to have a tick in my crack by the end of the
Yeah,
hike
true.
or not? So I thought it was
So
pretty strange. I couldn't get that off my mind during the hike, and now you're like you have these stomach issues, and so I'm wondering, what does that mean? Were you been throwing up all week? I mean, what's going on with that?
no, it's
Stomach
just
issues?
I'm in TMI. I'm constipated. I can't do anything, and I feel okay. There's no stomach
Oh my
pain.
God! Oh, this is here. This is like. I feel like this is an Oprah Winfrey show. I mean,
It
what's going
is.
on with this? Okay,
You know, no
so all
holds
right. What
barred.
so Dr. Rick, what do you prescribe for Stosh?
I
What do you say?
prescribe something simple, something my grandmother taught me a long time ago. Ice cold water as soon as you get a glass of ice cold water as soon as you get out of bed.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I will.
Could you drink that while you're on the John?
And that's
Should
no
you have-
shit. That's true.
Okay. I mean, I'll go with that. But yeah. So Rick, like previous episode, I had a tick bite on me. So, usually I don't get ticks. I bushwhacked and it
Oh.
must have, and it's weird. Once again, TMI, it fell right above the crack of my butt crack. So
Oh, yeah.
didn't see it. It's a little tough place to find. So we'll see if this keeps going on. Then, I might be headed to the doctor. So
You didn't have the bullseye rash?
no, I haven't had that. That's the thing. Is we've been checking it every day and seeing it, if it progresses or anything. It's been either the same or it hasn't had any progression. So
Yeah. So, but just for clarity, you don't need the rash necessarily to be infected with Lyme.
correct.
That's what I was going to say. And also, there's new Lyme diseases, not Lyme diseases, but new tick-borne diseases that are coming into our area also.
Mhm.
Exactly. Freaking small. I hate this shit. I hate it. All
Yeah,
right.
well,
So
try being a surveyor when you're out in the field all the time.
yeah, right. You
Every
have to
day our
bushwhack
guys have-
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, your whole life is basically bushwhacking. So
Yeah.
he should lead some hikes. So previous hikes, Rick, have you been up to anything?
I was supposed to go on the Mountaintop Historical Society hike on Saturday, which was the the Stony Clove Hunter Station area. And Paul LaPierre was leading a hike. He's a railroad nut, an expert. And we were going to do that. But I got back from a 3-week vacation on, I think it was Thursday. Patty and I got back, and it was just too overloaded with being behind the 8 ball on other things, so I didn't go. The 3 weeks we spent were in Yellowstone, Glacier National Park, and another park. So we did a lot of hiking down through there. Saw a lot of wildlife.
Awesome.
Oh, wow. What did you see like wildlife in terms of anything and everything? Moose, bison, stuff like that?
Yeah, well, just driving through Yellowstone, you see a lot. But we saw a mother grizzly with a cub, couple black bears, one with 2 cubs, and then a large bull elk, and just all sorts of little wildlife.
Wow. Awesome. Can't wait to hit there. I'll be going up there sometime in the next couple of years. I can't wait.
Oh, good. That's the first time we've been in the area, and we thoroughly enjoyed it.
I can't wait. I have so many destinations up in there, so it'll be fantastic. Well, good. Well, Tad, how about you? You want to go?
All right. So I spent Saturday out in Connecticut with my wife and daughter doing street fair stuff. So my normal hiking day was pushed back to Sunday, which was unseasonably warm. I drove out to the Western Catskills to finish the last long hike that I have as part of that Catskill All Trails Challenge. So it was started at Frick Pond. I parked over at the Mon Gap Pond campground, rode my bike a quick 2.5 miles over to the Frick Pond parking area where I went out on the Flynn Trail, Hodge Pond, which is part of the Beach Mountain Nature Preserve. It's pretty interesting out there. The trail was, just really a road. I did find, I went by a bunch of ponds, and maybe I'm giving it away by saying this at the beginning, but I did find as I was going around one of the 3 ponds, somebody had stashed a canoe behind a large rock. Rick is smiling. Maybe it's his canoe. Where presumably nobody would find it, and they would be able to do some discreet canoeing in a pond. So at any rate, I went around the pond after pond, over to Mongop Pond campground, up over the Mongop Hardenbergh Trail. I did the Sand Pond Mountain, but I didn't get over to Sand Pond. My notes reflect that generally, once I left, got like maybe a mile outside of the Mongop Pond and on the Hardenbergh Trail, which is, I guess, tonight's theme, the trail was really, really overgrown, poorly marked. Nonetheless, I made it out to Willow Weemock Mountain, and then I had to retrace back over Sand Pond down the Long Pond Beaverkill Trail, bang day right on the Mongop Willow Weemock Trail, which was a log road, and it was a rather interesting but not so interesting 19.6 miles of hiking. Yeah, my pre-route planning showed 15 miles, but that detour over to the Hodge Pond and added a couple miles, and then the tracking was off a little bit. So you can't always rely on your GPS for accurate estimates of distances. And I only say that because Rick's here. I do note that I was on the Big Rock Trail, but I did not see the Big Rock. So I don't quite know where they got the name. So here, this
what about elevation gain and stuff like that?
Killian did how many thousand feet? I did 1 foot more than him on my hike.
Yeah.
I think I did 92,365.999 feet. Now it was rather trivial, but I did have to retrace over Sand Pond Mountain. And you know how it is when you like do one of these hikes and you have to like double back. And even though I might have only bought like another 300 vert to get up and over that, you curse the whole way up because you're like, why the fuck do I have to hike over this again?
Correct.
Particularly when these trails were really overgrown, poorly maintained, not very well marked. I'm not dissing any particular trail maintainer. One of the things I note, well, I'll do it on my notes there. So these trails were generally lacking in trail markers. There was no Big Rock on the Big Rock Trail, as I said. No hikers. Imagine that, 19.6 miles. I was hiking all day. I did not see a single hiker. And one of the sign-in registers, the last sign-in for my hike on October 4th. When was the last sign-in, Stosh?
I would say August 5th.
You're off. Rick, what do you want to guess? Last sign-in the DEC Trailhead Register. September 1st.
Wow. I don't know.
September 1.
It's not well used.
Yeah, it was like over a month since the last sign-in.
Wow.
So with that lack of foot traffic, there is like no erosion on these trails because nobody goes out there and hikes them in dry conditions. Nobody goes out there and hikes it when it's wet.
Yeah.
So these trails, they have a lot of soot and sod and growth over the rock. So other than with the fresh leaves that have fallen, you're not hitting a lot of rocks on them. There were 19.6 miles. I think 4 little mountains, no mountaintop views. Right. Most of the time, no trail markers. Imagine doing the Hunter Loop with like no heavily eroded surface and no trail markers. Hard to imagine, but that's what this was like. Interestingly, no fall colors.
Oh yeah, because you're down south.
Well, I don't know if it was down south or what, but it was like there were leaves that had fallen from the trees that were fall colors, but for the main, and I'll post some pictures, the leaves on the trees were green for the most part. No.
I think what's happening is because the lack of rain, the trees are dropping their leaves earlier. Because you'll notice that the leaves are super brittle also.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which reminded me of this time last year, just before we had all those forest fires, how dry it was out there.
Yeah.
Right? Because normally you get some good rainfall and those leaves mat down and they just become like one solid surface. These are all just these little curled up leaves that can blow everywhere.
Yep.
So no fall colors, no post-hike bruise, no Stosh checking his crack that made the list because there was no ticks, no naked hikers, because I had that, 3 weeks ago, a naked hiker. So no hikers means no naked hikers. And number 12, guess what's number 12 on my list of things I did not experience on this 19.6 mile hike? No mountain lions.
Unfortunate.
I was kind of surprised by that. So
in that area, actually, back in the 1700s, they were actually seen.
pretty prevalent.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Hardenbergh originally bought up all that land because he wanted to have like the Catskill. Catskill game farm. He wanted to have the first Catskill game farm out there.
With mountain lions.
Rick's not impressed. He's leaning back, thinking these guys don't know what they're talking about. So that was my hike. Stosh, tell us about your Wyndham High Peak Mountain Rescue fun hike.
So I went up Blackhead. I started, of course, from the end of Big Hollow. Did the somewhat loop. I went up and summited Blackhead. Got to see that new route that they redid on Blackhead Mountain. Just opened up like 4 days before I went on Thursday.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic job.
So this is in addition to the one they did last year?
I think so. I mean, the last year one I don't think was completed. And that's the thing is I could not find the old trail that went up in the beginning. I could see it at the end when you hit that one spot, the viewpoint that overlooks Black Dome. You could see where it went down. And I was just like, wow, that was an atrocious ascent right there because you had to go up dirt and loose scree and stuff like that. It was just a pain. Yeah, straight up.
In the old days.
Yeah, and now
they used to have a ladder there, right, Rick? Way back when.
I'm not that old.
No, but I mean, back in the 70s and the 80s, I understand there was a ladder there because you still have the rebar.
That's what that rebar is.
Okay. Yeah, it was to pin the ladder down.
I hiked it more. I mean, I lived in East Jewett, so that's was our go-to hiking range right there. But no, I don't remember a ladder.
No?
Yeah, they did a fantastic job of making a switchback through there, lopped off some of the trees. I wouldn't say lopped off some of the trees, but made a little bit more.
You said lopped off some of the trees.
They did.
They manufactured a view.
Yes. So there's 2 or 3 views now up there instead of that just one view at the top where you see that outcrop of the stone that shows you the layers of the old glacial lake that they had. So fantastic time. I summited. I met a guy on the way up named Will. And then I saw him at the summit again. We both went down to Camp Steele and then down to the overlook. Camp Steele is overgrown, another one of those overgrown places that I have an X on the map. Below that, beautiful view of the Hudson, and then I hooked a right sometime at some point down there and went over to that other viewpoint that not a lot of people know about, but hey, hopefully they won't. A lot of bear poop. A lot of bear scat. Fresh, brand new mountain ashberry bear scat. And I was just like, I walked over there and I had to eat it. You ever get that smell of wet dog, unwashed dog?
No, I've never had a wet dog smell.
Well,
yeah, we're civil. I take a bath every day or a shower every day. I do not smell like
that.
That
means you don't have a wet dog.
I know what you guys upstate, you're you have a sawed off barrel in the backyard that you fill up with water once a week and bathe yourselves. But down here,
correct.
We're civilized.
So apparently you don't have dogs. So
no,
it smelled like wet dog. So I was like, so 2 things. I was just like, oh, so there might be a dead deer because it has that sweet smell to it. And then I was just like, or it could be a black bear that's, lingering around the area. So I was a little bit extra cautious, but got some good views, went back and summited, went down the east part, the super steep east part of Blackhead, freaking phenomenal. I love that. And then I went up and at the junction, I was like, what the hell? I'll just go over to Aqua Point and get that secluded, nice time going through the escarpment. Summited Acre Point, saw a few people over there, met a few people, and then went down and got back to the car. And then got in the car, went on my way. I turned, left onto, it's not Big Hollow, but left onto something like 40, I forgot, it was 40 something. And all of a sudden I see a forest ranger with its lights on flying past me.
Oh.
And so I like pulled over to the side, of course, emergency lights, you gotta let them go. And then I'm just like, you know what? Maybe I'll turn around and follow them. So I did. I turned around and followed them up to Wyndham High Peak, and I met Ranger Fox, and I was like, "Hey, Ranger Fox." And she's like, "Hey, Stosh, the podcast, right?" And like, "Yeah." I'm like, "And you know, formerly on the search and rescue team." She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "What's going on?" She's like, "Oh, there's a rescue going on up past the lean-to on Wyndham High Peak." And I'm just like, "Do you guys need any assistance?" And they're like, she's like, "No, we don't need any assistance. I think we're going to utilize UTV from the local fire department, and then, you know, it'll be easy ongoing from there." I'm like, "All right." I'm like, "That's pretty cool. Good luck." And I turned around, and then I saw two more forest rangers come down. I believe I saw Martin and then somebody else. I knew it was Martin because I can tell Martin from that big dark mustache that he has. So, they were up there doing something. I haven't heard anything since. So fantastic day. The colors were amazing. Like you said, a little bit warm. It got into the high 70s when I was out there, especially towards the end. It got super warm. And but I was just, you know, just the colors, you know, different greens, yellows, oranges. It's a little, compared to other times, it's a little stale than what it has been at other times. But once again, Rick said, you know, we all know that the drought has been happening. The leaves are just turning over too quickly. They're getting fried from the sun. So we just don't have the color that we have, but we still have at least some color. It's going from green to like brown and maybe like dark orange. So it's good time, good time. I don't know how the mileage and the thing, because unfortunately I started recording like a mile and a half into the hike. So I was just like, it didn't work. But the spring up on the Black Head side in between Lockwood Gap is running freaking pretty great, which is what I found. I was just like, oh crap. And from my stats that I started recording was 6.6 miles and 2,200 feet of elevation, or 1,500 feet of elevation gain, which I don't think is correct because, of course, I didn't record a mile and a half. So
that was on Sunday. You went up there?
Yeah.
Yeah. My one of my takeaways from Sunday was the fact that, notwithstanding the fact that the leaves on the trees were predominantly green, a lot of the leaves on the tops of the trees had blown off or fallen off. So the canopy was really thin, almost like a warm spring day. So I found it to be just warmer than I was expecting out there. I burnt through a lot of fluids. And like I said, you know, didn't see anybody, but I didn't put on my list. You didn't pick it up. No bear. I didn't say no bear. I did see a bear. You talk about big bear scat. Yeah, I was starting to see some big fresh ones and in the trail ahead. And sure enough, man, I remember, you know, I was walking into the wind, so it wasn't going to smell me. And next thing I know, about 20 yards away, there she was feeding herself with all those berries and whatnot. And it was quiet for a little bit. And then she took off like a racehorse through the woods. They're so fast when they take off. They're like 0 to 100 miles an hour in 2 steps.
Yeah.
There's no outrunning a bear, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. So awesome. Hopefully everybody will have the same forecast as us that we had last week. Let's actually get on with that. We have forecast for this weekend. Looks to be Friday. Beautiful out. It looks in the mountaintops. We're talking about Hunter Mountain right here is the mid 40s to low 30s, maybe in the 20s. So it's time to start packing your extra layers just in case. So, but sunny skies, clear skies. Saturday looks to be clear skies as well. Mid 40s to low 40s. In the morning, it's supposed to be around 36 degrees. So most people aren't hiking in the morning unless they're backpacking. So clear. Sunday, we get into a little bit of rain later on in the evening, but it looks to be a decent morning. A little bit of rain in the PM, not too much, but it says in the PM at night and the Sunday that we're supposed to get over an inch of rain on Hunter Mountain with a low of 19 degrees.
Nice.
So
Sweet.
Snow might be coming. We never know.
Yeah.
Never know in freaking upstate New York.
Yeah. Check your winter gear before you go out hiking. Don't show up at the trailhead not checking this stuff out. And then next thing you know, you're on the mountain and your spikes are like, you know, not they've got broken links in them or whatever's wrong with them, and they're not going to do what they need to do for you. So check your gear now.
Now's the time.
Yep.
So our last set of sponsors, and then we'll get on to Rick's amazing stories and stuff like that and talk about the Hardenbergh patent. So discover Camp Catskill in Tannersville, your ultimate hiking store. Find top quality gear, apparel, and accessories for all your outdoor adventures. Our expert staff is to help every hiker from beginners to seasoned pros. We also carry a variety of unique Catskill souvenirs and gifts. Visit us online at campcatskill.co or in the store to gear up for your next journey. Adventure starts at Camp Catskill. Also embark on a transformative journey with Another Summit. Another Summit is dedicated to serving veterans and first responders with free outdoor activities. Activities like walks in nature, paddling, hiking, and even backpacking. Join our supportive community to rejuvenate in nature's embrace. Experience camaraderie, adventure, and healing at no cost. Take your next step with Another Summit and ascend to new heights of resilience and joy. Apply today at anothersummit.org. All right, so let's get on to the guest of the night.
Let's go.
Tonight, Rick Brooks, survey and historian, joins us to talk about the Hardenbergh patent and other things as well. Tad's going to throw some curveballs in there, like we said before. So, Rick, you're the first time in a long time someone's enjoyed the pregame chat, shooting the shit. So I'm glad you can join us and glad you can chomp in on that. That was fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, we always kind of get you into the groove of things, right?
Well, yeah, I know all it takes is a good beer.
That's right. Yeah, just one good Keegan ale and you're ready to go.
Absolutely.
Like a real fireman.
One good beer at Schneider's and you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Rick, give a little background about yourself. You can go as far back as you want. You know, you said previously you were in East Jewett, so go as back as far as you want, sir.
Sure. My mother, Doris Westbrooks, was seventh generation of her family being born and raised in the Eastkill Valley near Colgate Lake. And she herself is a very celebrated folk artist and artist in general. She's written a number of books about stories of from her family and stuff that have come up through all the ages. I myself was raised in Tannersville and East Jewett. I attended the Hunter Tannersville Central School. I graduated in 1975 from HTC. The only bad experience I had was in the first week of first grade. My teacher was my grandmother, and she was raised by a pretty strict Methodist family, and she impressed upon me at first grade that when I'm in the classroom, I need to call her Mrs. West, but when we're out of the classroom, I can continue calling her grandma. Well, I got everything screwed up as a first grader. And pretty soon the entire class was calling Lucy Thorpe West, my grandmother, calling her grandma. And that just made her tough. And then she ran into a couple students in the Tannersville A&P, and they called her grandma in the A&P. So I got a little swat on my rear end from her in first grade in front of all the class. So that broke that little bad habit. And I grew up in a family of land surveyors. My uncle Jim West was one of my main mentors as I matured into the profession. And he's now 96 years old and still very active. In fact, we had a nice picnic with him about a little over a month ago. My grandfather was James West Sr., also a licensed surveyor. And my great uncle was Edward West. And he's the one I spent most of my professional career with. And then, of course, we had cousins working in the family businesses, and my mom worked as an office administrator. In fact, my wife and I got together and started our own company. She was the administrator for us for many, many years. Speaking of my wife, Patty Patricia Pauly is her maiden name. She's also a licensed land surveyor, and she's second generation. She and I have been married 35 plus years, and we now live in an area known as Clintondale in Ulster County. which is between New Paltz and Highland. And
Nice.
we reside on what's left of her grandmother's farm. She ran a truck farm in the 50s, 60s, not so much 70s, but 40s, 50s, 60s, servicing all the summer homes in the area with fruits and vegetables. And actually, we lived on the Bond patent. We're talking about the Hardenbergh patent tonight, but we lived on the Bond patent, which at 500 acres is one of the smallest colonial patents. I was professionally licensed in 1984 and have spent my entire professional life in and around the Hardenbergh patent. 1974, I completed my Catskill 3500 Club hikes, and at the old Governor Clinton Hotel on Broadway in Kingston, one February night, I received my membership certificate at the annual dinner, and my member number is 128.
Wow. Nice. Unbelievable.
That's crazy. That's got to be the lowest number we've had on the show.
No,
Right.
that Eric guy I've had was 114.
Oh, okay.
I forgot what his name was.
Last name?
Oh, I will give Eric Frischner or something. I had him on very early. This was like teens, 20s, and
Gotcha.
he was an. I love to hear about you guys having that time in the 70s, because I think that it's just like the time right now of where we had a huge bloom in hiking, but like it wasn't as much crazy with the high peaks that were the trailless high peaks and stuff like that. But can you tell us more about the 70s and stuff? I mean, you completed in 75. That's only 8 years after the club was formed.
Right.
So can you tell us about that?
Ed West was one of the founding people of the 3500 Club. So, and he turned 75 in 1975.
Wow.
So he wanted, in 1974, he decided he was going to do all the peaks again and all the winter hikes again. So he grabbed me and my brothers, and off we went. My youngest brother is member number 129. Back then, that's when it started getting a little bit busier in the Catskills and on the trails and stuff. So, and I had during that time, Mike Kudish was doing his studies of bogs and forest for his PhD. And I had a number of hikes. I forget how many. I'm sure he knows right to the day every time he hiked. I was sitting in bogs and on Saturdays and Sundays, and sometimes on a holiday, watching him dig through the swamps and stuff. And as I dozed off because I was out drinking the night before or something, And then other than that, I routinely present programs for historical societies. And a number of topics I use, and past this year alone, I've done 3 of them. So it's and during those programs, I help promote land surveying and stuff like that.
So before we move away from your initial round of the 3,500, did they have sign-in canisters on the mountaintops back then in 75? Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
And there were no herd pass back then.
Oh yeah.
And no GPS, so you had to rely on compass and topographic maps.
So what number finisher were you, Rick?
128.
So the one person that we had that I had on episode 49 was 122 Ralph Ferrucci.
No, I don't know him.
Yeah, he was.
That's good.
Yeah, he was wild. He would tell about how crazy the 70s were, where people were, popping open like 12 packs on the summits and stuff like that, and just enjoying that stuff. And he's guilty. Rick is guilty.
Well, you didn't have hydration. You didn't have hydration packs back then.
Right. And you didn't have the camel packs or anything.
I mean, and the convenience stores didn't exist, so you go into the convenience store, it'd either be soda or beer. And what are you going to take? What are you going to take on the hike? You're going to take a 6-pack of soda
Not at all.
or some brews, right? Which is,
Your friends will look at you and be like, this is disgusting. Get off the mountain.
Yeah, so you're going to grab a 6-pack of Blatz and you're going to go bushwhack. So back in the 70s, which was the hardest trailless mountain in the Cats to do in the 70s?
Oh, well, that's a good question because there were no herd paths back then.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, it was probably rocky.
Yeah, wow.
You know,
Nice.
just circling around till you could find it. Yeah, yeah. And on your stomach, yeah.
Yeah, the summit, that whole area is flat. So you guys had to be, going back and forth. Back. Is this the summit? No, no, it's a little bit further. Like, let's
Right.
go like 20 feet further. No, no,
Yeah.
this doesn't feel it.
Yeah. Well, what people eat with or without herd paths today, I think what made hiking more challenging back then was not only the lack of GPS, but those balsam fir forests were really, really thick because
Yeah.
you hadn't had hundreds and hundreds of people going through there breaking off all the dead branches, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I've seen that in just the not even 10 years I've been doing this, where in the old days, for me, the late teens, you would go through some of these fir forests and you'd have to dance around a little bit to get through the balsam fir. But it's not like it is today. Today, you just kind of go through there with or without a herd path in front of you. And it's, you're not going to poke your eye out like you almost did 8 years ago. So,
Yeah. And I'm fully behind DEC putting trails on those trailless peaks now, just for the management purposes.
mhm.
Yeah, I fully support that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
agree.
inevitable.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. So let's break away from the awesome 70s. Maybe God, like Rick, I think you're going to be booked for the next 4 or 5 weeks on
Yeah.
our podcast.
Well, we got to talk about money first.
Ah,
Yeah, well, we'll have our
pay your
people get a
booze.
hold of your people,
Yeah.
and we'll get you a Keegan Ale sponsorship that's in the works, and maybe another nice beer mug, a frosty beer mug
All
or
right.
two.
Give you a
We'll help you
Westkill.
out. Yeah,
He's sold.
yeah. We'll get you membership privileges at Snyder's Tavern. How's that?
I already have them. Thanks.
See this guy? Wow. We should have had him a long time ago. So let's break into the Hardenbergh patent. So what was it? Let's get sort of deep into this before we ask like someone any questions.
Yeah. So the Hardenbergh patent. So the time period we're talking about is pretty much from 1704 to the early 1800s, probably about 1830. So I'm gonna focus on that because that's where the patent began and got its legs and took off. But as a part of history, I want to just talk about the Dutch and their or their interest and their development ideas of when they owned it, starting in 1609, and their ownership ended in 1664 when the English crown ousted them. But it didn't really end at 1664 because the Dutch came back and pushed the English out, and then there was all sorts of worldwide strife going on. So there were Spanish Armada, all these navies were battling throughout the world. And there was finally a treaty in 1673 that Dutch said, "All right, we've had it. We're leaving. You can have it." In the population in 1660 under the Dutch was there was a census done and they reported 4,900 white men along the main highway being the Hudson River, and on their trading posts and stuff, and down in New Netherland, which is what they called New York and New York City. The English held the colony for about 140 years, from 1664 to 1783. And in 1770, I saw a census that put 162,900 people
Wow.
in the census. So you can see the difference in population in just 110 years. Now, the census that counted the 162,000 plus people, it didn't specify, or at least I don't remember it specifying was it just white men, or was it white men and slaves, because that was also common, or was it white men and white with wives and white, all that stuff. But so I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. but the two countries had two different types of economy. You know, the Dutch-based economy was based on trade. They would have ships sailing the high seas all the time, taking money and stuff from this port, going to this port, trading stuff, selling stuff, buying stuff, going to the next port. So by the time a couple years or 4 years expired, they got back to the Dutch country, and the ships had high value of not only goods but also money. Whereas the economy of the English government was based on natural resources. These countries have been in existence for centuries, and they were thirsty for agricultural imports, for timber imports, for coal imports. That was big on their list, and of course, large white pines or other conifers that were about 100 feet tall to be used for the sails of their ships. So two different types of economy drove two different types of trying to populate the area. So for agricultural to grow, the English needed more people. So they had this system of granting land to speculators in land, and I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. And again, these countries have had centuries of experience of stealing and conquering, stealing property or nations, and conquering the indigenous peoples, whether it be the Spice Islands or now in the Hudson Valley area. The expanding countries developed some legal principles that allowed the whites to establish a chain of title from the indigenous people into their legal system. So the indigenous people had no concept of owning property or having a title to a property as we do in our houses or whatever it is we do own. So they developed a couple of rules, principles of law, including sovereignty, which is the akin to planting the flag. You see in the movies, some conqueror come on to wade through the shoreline and establish and plant a flag on the beachhead, and claiming it as their mother country. So, and that by allowed supreme authority, allowing for the right to demand obedience from the inhabitants, and the supreme ownership of all the property. And then as time went on, they developed a principle called aboriginal title, which recognized the possession rights of the land of the indigenous people, so that gave the Europeans and the whites the ability to establish a treaty with the Indians or the indigenous peoples, and thereby starting a chain of title. Now, the indigenous peoples throughout the world really didn't have that concept of ownership. This is mine, get off my land, or this is mine, here, buy my land. They didn't have those. They were one with the land, right? Even the river Indian tribes that we dealt with through the Dutch and through the English period, they had just a feeling of where they were and no set boundaries. Mm-hmm. So it was just a new concept for them. And when the treaties were started, especially under English rule, right? Some of them, most of the Indian nations had their own languages, which was not understood by the Europeans coming in, of course. But the ones that were there during the Dutch time got to learn some of the Dutch words and some of the hand signals and stuff. So it started out with the people who were there as the English government took title. They acted as interpreters with the Indians, and they would transfer that body of evidence, I guess, into the English system. Mm-hmm. Now, that's just sort of a kind of quick and dirty synopsis of how this came to be. And then the sovereign monarch, or as far as the English go, the king or queen, appointed a governor and a council of men to oversee the business of the colony. And that governor and that council was supposed to turn a profit off of the colony, off the lands they own, and return that money back to the United Kingdom at this point. So anyway, we're talking about the Hardenbergh patent. So first,
Yeah.
the patent is the legal document that is resulting from the legislative process of conveying the legal ownership of a parcel from the sovereign government, in this case, the English government, to a private entity, whether it be a principal or an organization or a company. And those entities are referred to as the patentees. Hardenbergh, in this case, was the particular name of the patent. Each patent had was named by name. So in my case, my grandmother's case, the last name of the patentee, the primary patentee, was Bond. So I live in the Bond patent. Most of the people listening probably live in the Hardenbergh patent. And as Johannes Hardenbergh, one of the first and primary party filing for the patent application, he was listed first. So it became the Hardenbergh patent. That's where that comes from. And then there was also six other applicants in that patent application.
Yeah. So, why don't you just give us the lowdown on some data? How big was the Hardenbergh patent? What did these guys pay for it? And and then we'll step into what they did with it and what wasn't done with it. So, how big was the Hardenbergh patent, and what did they pay for it? And if you could bring that up to date in modern dollars.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Good point. Good
I'll have to
point.
get a calculator out for that.
Yeah.
So there was a process for obtaining a patent, and I just want to run through that process real quick. There's 5 or 6 steps to it, and you'll get a sense of how corrupt the patenting process under this particular monarch, who was Queen Anne, and her appointed governorship, how corrupt they actually were. So there was at least 5 steps to apply for a patent of land. First, a petition to the governor for permission to purchase land from the Indians. And of course, you had to pay a fee for that to the governor's office. And then the purchase from the Indians. Now, when I say purchase, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but a negotiated treaty. So with payment. So payment to the Indian nation, which are usually done in trinkets, so maybe some barrels of rum and some gunpowder and some guns and stuff like that. And of course, the trinkets for the women. And then they had to apply for a warrant to be issued by the governor to direct the Surveyor General to cause a survey of the treaty lands. Both of them, the governor and the surveyor, receive a fee. And then the survey being made through the Surveyor General's office with a map and field notes returned to the Surveyor General. And then he developed his patent submittal. And then they had to obtain another warrant from the governor directing an attorney general to prepare a draft of the patent parchment paper. I think we all know what parchment is, right? That's just a very thin animal skin that's been beaten and dried and etched upon and stained. And at that time, they both got a fee. And then the attorney general, once that happened, would send off the paperwork back to England, which on a good month took about 3 weeks to get back there. It's presented to the monarch in charge, the king or queen, in this case, Queen Anne, and then it comes back and then the ownership transfers. Now, you can see that this process provided an important source of income for the officers and government officials within the colony, with none of that money being returned to the crown. And I just want to read, so the description of the patent. Now, I'm just going to read it real quick because it's very short. It's 149 words. A certain tract of vacant and unappropriate land situate in the counties of Ulster and Albany, beginning at the Sandburg or hills at ye northeast corner of lands granted to Ebenezer Wilson Vandenberg at Minnesink. So running along their line northwesterly, as said line runs to the Fishkill River, and so to the head thereof, including the same. Thence in a direct line to the head of a certain small river commonly known by the name of Cartwright's Kill, and so by the northerly side of said kill or river to the northernmost bounds of Kingston. On said kill, thence by the bounds of Kingston, on said kill or river, thence by the bounds of Kingston, Hurley, Marbletown, Rochester, and other patent lands on the southward thereof to said Sandburg, the place where it first began. 149 words.
So how many
It was-
acres is this?
Well, you gotta wait.
Oh, okay.
All right. So it was problematic and in violation of the set process. No survey was made, but it was sent to the Queen for her seal and signature. In fact, in 1708, the allowable size of a patent was 2,000 acres per person. So we had 7 people applying for this patent. So that was 7 times 2 is something 14,000 acres. But in
How they pull it off? How they get so much? Who'd they pay off to get all this land?
every officer I mentioned was in on it.
Got paid
And
off.
not only this patent, but other patents too.
Yeah.
So, and everything was violated throughout the entire thing. Survey records had to be filed, but they never ordered the survey. So no acreage was cited. The Attorney General sends the draft description based upon the Indian Treaty to the Queen, who, with that original deed description, signed and sealed it and sent it back to the colonies. And again, as I said, typically the size was limited to a maximum of 2,000 acres, but the Board of Trade, which oversaw all things commercial in the colony, reduced the size to 1,000 acres per person. So 7,000 acres is in 1708 what they were allowed to get.
So was there any rationale behind just limiting it to 1,000 acres per person? Was there some reason for that?
I think the Board of Trade recognized that the patents were being abused in size.
Yeah.
And they were trying to gain control of it.
And did the Crown and its representatives here feel that if you gave such a large tract to someone by way of this patent, the return on giving them more than 1,000 acres would not be proportionate to the acreage? It would kind of fall off because no single person could really get a lot of stuff out of that land without a couple John Deere tractors and other farm implements. Is that what's, yeah. So in general, way back when, 300 years ago plus, they wanted to limit these patents to 1,000 acres, and Hardenbergh and gang pull off a heist where they get $2 million because they pay people and they don't get a survey. And then why doesn't somebody say, hey, you ripped off everyone. You got all this land and you need to give it back. This is a scam. Did anybody ever try to do that?
There were dozens of legal issues and through the courts, but nobody was successful in vacating that patent because, again, it wasn't really, it wasn't a democracy. So the king and queen had total rule over what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so if they didn't care, then this wasn't going to be reversed.
They thought, and of course, the governor of New York was Edward Hyde, who was the Lord of Cornbury. And he was I got to think a minute, the cousin of the queen, rather. So she appointed him. And he's quite a discussion issue on his own because he was quite flamboyant. But I just want to run through that patent and I'll tell you how big, and that'll tell you line by line how big this thing was. because you can trace it. Once you
Yeah.
figure out what the old Indian treaty names were of the landmarks, you can actually plot it on paper. So the first course was beginning at the Sandburger Hills at the northeast corner lands granted to Wilson Derrick Vandenberg at Minisink. That's down near Wurtsboro. So running all along their line northwesterly as said line runs to the Fishkill or river. The Fishkill was the name of the Delaware River at the time. That line in itself right there is 30 miles long. And then the next course, and so to the head thereof, including the same. So that's up the river, up the Delaware River, up to the West Branch, and then along the West Branch to Stanford. And that line is 100 miles long along the river. Thence, the next course is thence in a direct line to the head of a certain small river commonly known by the name of Cartwright's Kill. We all know that Cartwright was the owner of a sawmill in North Lake near the Catskill Falls. So that line was 31 miles. And then it runs by the already existing patents. Runs along the northern side of Kill to the northernmost bounds of Kingston, Onset Kill River. Thence by bounds of Kingston, Onset River. Thence by the bounds of Kingston, Hurley, Marbletown, Rochester, and other patented lands to the southward to the first place it began.
Which is Wurtsboro.
Yeah, Wurtsboro, near Wurtsboro. And that line is 126 miles long.
Wow.
So when they finished the surveying in the early to mid 1800s, they computed it to be 1.5 million acres.
Wow. So, and you said the survey was finished in the early to mid 1800s, so more than
Wait a
100 years after.
How many acres?
1.5
Whoa. So we're talking about half of the, billion?
million.
So that's half of the Adirondack Park, what is right now the biggest park in the United States. Wow. So
No.
Ted, sorry, I just had to, that's insane. How many, the park is like 375,000 acres right now?
Catskill Park?
Yeah.
Catskill Park, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so 1.5 million acres. And you'll see on social media quite a bit right now that it's the Hardenbergh patent was 2 million acres in size, but it wasn't. That's not true. It was always 1.5 was the calculated back in the late 1700s, early 1800s. And then I had our GIS department, because I know where you can find these lines on a map, put a polyline around this description, and it comes out to 1.4 million acres. So it's only 120,000 difference between the late 1700s and
Holy shit.
2025. So
That's
there
not
you
bad.
go.
Are you saying Hardenbergh is entitled to a modest refund because he was shorted some acreage? So did we get how much Hardenbergh and Company paid for this?
Yeah. How much?
I had that figure, and it wasn't too much. But there was restrictions, but I don't remember what it was. But there was also restrictions. They had to populate it, the X number of settlers per year. So that
Give me an estimate.
population.
Like 120,000?
Geez, I don't even know how to calculate. I think it was, and it's measured in pounds, of course.
Yeah.
So it doesn't help.
Oh shit. So $120,000 in 1704 is worth $8.4 million today, which I highly doubt that, because once again, we have houses here selling for $8.4 million in Lexington. So
yeah, well, you got to remember, in 1703, this land really wasn't worth anything.
it was all, we didn't have reservoirs and everything. We had farm. This was basically all farm and timber.
Yeah, my question, Rick, is if I'm living down in New Amsterdam, right? Just got off the boat 6 months ago. I'm hanging out in New Amsterdam, and a representative of the Hardenbergh Patent Company comes down and tries to entice me to come upstate and settle in the Hardenbergh patent. what are they offering me? Because I read that other patent owners would build roads, put canals in. They would put some, so-called amenities in to help me get like my grain in to the mill and whatnot. What did the Hardenbergs do to get people to settle in their patent?
Well, they had a number of tactics, right? So first of all, the people who came are fleeing their motherland. There was a lot of strife throughout Europe, so it was easy for the land speculators to entice people to come. They pay for their voyage, and then they would bring them over here. The actual settlement didn't really take place until after the mid 1800s, after all the litigation was solved and the outbounds were solved. I think it was 1841 that the original partition of the patent was started. But it was and I forget the date, but I have it, 1863, before they had the entire boundary line survey. Wow. So what would happen is, again, we have 7 (8) shareholders, and they broke them up into sections of great lots. And they were typically numbered 1 through 8. And then they had a ballot. Jumping ahead of myself here a little bit.
No, you're good.
The first petition was 1749. And they had a lottery ballot between the 7 owners or their heirs, because many of them died between 1708 and 1749. I think 3 of the 7 passed away. But the ballot was, the map was broken into tiers of like size, like area, great lots of 8. And they did that a number of times throughout. So some of the great lots had 60,000 acres in them. Some of the great lots had like 500 acres in them. And they tried to partition them out by section. So in this one particular section, let's say was 400 acres per great lot, or 4,000 acres per great lot, they have 1 through 8, and 7 would draw a number out of a lottery. And then that would be the great lot that they end up with. There's 7 of them, but there's every block has 8 great lots in it. And that was because there was a shadow owner that the patentees recognized. And they kept out that 8th share and later conveyed it to that particular owner, who was, by the way, the Surveyor General. Augustus Graham. So that was another thing.
So are you telling us the Surveyor General had a vested interest in like stretching the boundary lines of the grant to put more land in it?
Not so much stretching the boundary lines, because this chunk of land was pretty much surrounded by other patents that were already given.
Okay.
Already patented. So, in survey law or land ownership law, the first one that buys a piece of property has what's called senior title. So these patents had senior title. And then what was left over, which was the Catskill Mountains, the Hardenbergh patent, because there's all good land around it, including the Hudson Valley lands that went up to the edge of the Blue Hills. And beyond that, everybody thought it was worthless. But these speculators recognized that there's natural resources up in those hills, and there's quite a few valleys that could be farmed.
Yeah, and before 1841, when this litigation was settled, the barkers had already started barking the hemlock trees. Isn't that true? And the tanneries were already up in the Catskills in the early 1800s?
Yes. Yep.
So that was generating some level of revenue for the Hardenbergs. But before we talk about surveying it, what did the Hardenbergs do, if anything, to get people interested in settling in the middle of nowhere?
Well, first of all, the lawsuits had to be settled, right? And then there were boundary line agreements, and then military claims for military service claims came up, and they had to be satisfied and stuff. But in 1774, the colonial government settled the last line of patent, which was the north line that ran down to the campground in Ames Falls, North Lake. So that by 1774, the patent was pretty much encircled with surveys. Then it started going through, the individual patent owners around it would start a lawsuit and that all go down. So it was almost 2 generations worth of people from 1708 to when they could actually get their great lots and do something with them. And that's, we talk about surveyors. So that whole first round of surveyors was focused on getting the survey done around the patent. Then the second generation of surveyors came in and worked for the independent great lot owners. And then that's when they started breaking up into farm lots or natural resource lots and marketing those lots.
So with this time, how many people at the end of when it was kind of stamped and said and final, how many people were in on the Hardenbergh patent? How many people do we have? How many, I wouldn't say family men own this area, this freaking 1 million acres? We have like hundreds, or was it like 20?
Well, when I look at because what happened, or let me back up a little bit. So what happened was the land surveyor who deals with the land would be hired and they would do a survey of a particular great lot or a portion of a great lot. So in my office in our conference room on the wall is a 10-foot or 12-foot long map of the east part of Great Lot 5, which includes Grahamsville and then on out to the Delaware County line. There's 500 lots that were created by that land agent who was a Kierstead surveyor. And the lots number, they average, from what I looked at, 240, 250 acres per lot. And there was over 500 lots mapped out. Now, some of them, they sold the lots, but the others had to come down to the leasehold patroon system, whereby they signed a lease for 100 years.
So they wouldn't actually own the land; they'd lease it.
Some places they sold the land, especially if there was a development started. They would sell the house and the mill and whatever. And
so with that, Rick, with the selling and stuff, did they have to send that back to the Queen or anything, or they just do this under?
No, because remember, the Queen signed off on her rights to land.
Oh,
right. So the individual patent owners owned whatever great lots they could get out of that lottery system.
So they could do whatever they wanted after that.
Yeah.
And then this started the whole lease load system, which caused a huge kind of occurrence in the southern Catskill area we called Andes, the anti-rent war. I went over this very briefly back in one of my way early episodes, but the anti-rent war was pretty crazy. Just say that.
Extremely interesting, right?
Yeah.
Extremely interesting.
People dressing up as Calicoon Indians and holding heads of something is just a little far-fetched beside, but it's crazy. So do you want to explain the anti-rent war or stuff like that?
Sure. Well, the patroon system, which this is what's called. So from the government who had sovereign title, they would grant to a group of speculators like the Hardenbergh was.
So Rick, one question: government? You talk about New York State government or the federal government?
Federal government wasn't involved at that
That's
time.
That's what I thought. Okay.
If we're after the Revolutionary War, I'm talking about statehood and the New York State government. If we're before the Revolutionary War, I'm talking about the monarch in the United Kingdom.
Okay. So this is
king or queen.
This is state government.
Yes. So,
okay.
But going back, the patroon system, which is that level of government where it's based upon the feudal system back from the Renaissance area, came over from the Dutch. That was a Dutch establishment. So when they sold land along the highway, which was the Hudson River, they brought in the leaseholders. They granted the patent to the freeholders, and then the freeholders had to make money. So they broke it up. They hired a surveyor to break up the patent or great lots in the Hardenbergh situation into sellable pieces or rentable pieces. More than likely, and typically the people coming over from Europe were poor, and they were trying to escape persecution from different forms of religious beliefs and a asshole government, and they were trying to get it, and that was the call, and that was the that brought them over to the new country was, hey, you can come and get one of our farm lots. And all you have to sign a lease, so we don't need any money down. But every year you have to give back to the patentee owner.
So what they have to generate to pay their rent?
Well, it was commodities, right? So it was commodities, which is and natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
So they would generate anything, and I've seen a lot of leases. So it could be a bunch of poetry a year, or it could be
what
poetry.
Poetry.
Wow, I wish I could do that.
So I could own land in the States by just writing some poems. Is that what you're saying?
Jesus.
No, the chickens, the two-legged chickens.
Yeah.
Oh,
great.
Interesting. And then
poultry.
Oh, poultry.
Yes.
Okay. That's, I mean, we're talking about, so livestock.
Yep, livestock of whatever type. And then, it could be bushels of grain. It could be firewood, X number of cords of firewood. It could be timber. It could be ship mast. It could be, if they weren't profitable in their sustenance farming, it could be working on the road system. X number of days. And it was up to the land surveyor. Remember, the land surveyor had 2 or 3 different roles. It was up to the land surveyor to keep the book of who had what lease and what the yearly payment was on that lease. It was up to the surveyor and his employees to go from cabin to cabin and bang on the door and say, hey, it's time. What do you got for me?
So with this anti-rent war, why weren't the surveyors targeted but the sheriffs were and stuff?
Because everybody loves their surveyor.
I mean, yeah.
And that's tonight's podcast, folks. We're going to end it on that note. Everybody loves your local surveyor, straight from Rick Brooks' mouth to your ears. So so, I mean, do you have any idea, like if I had one of these 240 some acre plots, principally used for farming, what would I generally have to generate per year to pay my rent? A dozen chickens, X board feet of wood. What would I have to generate in terms of commodities? And then once you tell me what I'd have to generate, how would the surveyor get it back from my place,
True.
Way out in the western end of the patent before the railroads to some place where the patent holder could use it?
It's a lot of questions, and I made some notes.
Good.
So, when the surveyor took the great lot and started breaking it up into individual, I'm going to call them farm lots. They weren't all farm lots, but let's just call them farm lots. And of the example I gave, 250 acres, right? The surveyor, as he was laying out those stakes on the ground, would record what kind of timber, what kind of water resources were on site. Is there an existing path or roadway? What's the soil like? What's the top of the soil like? I've even seen in marks on the surveyor's notebooks, soil is extremely cold for the month of July. So you wouldn't want to be a farmer when the seeds wouldn't germinate because the soil's too cold and there's too short of a growing period. So it was all stuff like that. So the surveyors had in their field books a description of what that 250 acres was like. They would then sit down and talk with somebody who was interested in either purchasing, which was very rare, or signing a 100-year or a 99-year lease on that property.
So that's a lot of freaking work.
Surveyor, as the surveyor, right? I said, okay, well, I got 6 different farms giving me poetry or their
Nice.
chickens, if you will. So what I need over here is you have water on your lot. So I'm going to ask you, is a great place to build a mill, and the landholder, the patentee may finance that mill, but it would have to be paid back, the soil, the timber and stuff. So the patentee owners and the surveyors worked hand in hand on what that great lot had to produce to make it a profit.
So different areas had different resources, of course. So like the mountainous areas had the timber, the lower areas had the farm soil for farming, and then there would be like the irrigation areas for water and timber and stuff.
Yeah, and the land surveyors were also well versed in geology. So I have a map that is situated in Dry Brook, and then they have a couple notes on the maps of possible coal available. Heavy white pine trees available in excess of 100 feet tall. So that that's a commodity that farmer, I guess, or farm lot owner would have at his or her disposal.
So how did this start the anti-rent war? People were saying that this is my land, and
yeah, everybody showed up once a year to get all their stuff. And then, there's not a lot of profitable land up in the Catskills as far as trying to live off of them. I think we all know that.
Yeah.
And so it just become an agitation point. And then you couldn't get out of it. You couldn't sell your lease.
Oh, wow.
Your lease went down. So if old Rick Brooks was out there and he came over from Poland, and I'm not being able to acclimate to this client, and I'm not being profitable in producing my rent for the year, and I keel over and I die. By that lease that was originally signed, my next of kin, the oldest son, would take over that is burdened with that lease. So there was no getting out of it. So you had 100 years of generations.
So whether it was because I didn't produce enough to pay my rent, or I keeled over and my eldest son didn't want to take over the lease, I think what I'm hearing is then whatever Rick Brooks built on his leased land, his family would have to walk away from. You couldn't sell your barn and your cabin or house to somebody because you only leased the land. And if the patent holder didn't want to help you out in selling your lease to somebody, they just tell you, tough noogies, you didn't perform, or your next of kin don't take over. So you're evicted, or your family's evicted, and they'll sell it to lease it to the next person. Is that what happened?
I don't know of anybody being evicted. I mean, people were forced to stay there.
Yeah. Wow. That's almost like slavery.
Yeah. I was going to say that's slavery.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's the point, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're stuck. They're bound. They bound their out of a point of desperation. They migrate to this country and they buy this farm lot. And now, 20 years later, it's not working, and they have to get out, and they recognize what America does have to offer. That's where the agitation starts, and it just became a whole thing.
And then we get the amazing anti-rent war where people are dressed as Calicoon Indians, protesting the leases and stuff like that, having heads of sliced animals on their front porch, and the sheriff's like, hey, you need this rent, or the surveyor, stuff like that, and all of a sudden chaos breaks loose. And that's one of the greatest stories in the Catskill history.
Yeah, it wasn't just the Catskill, so it was also the Hudson Valley, and it was also parts west and stuff. I mean, the patroon system was replicated And I guess the patentees, the owners of the great lots at that time and the large patents thought that if they had a contract signed, that they would have a stabilized income coming in. And they knew the people they were catering to had no money, right? They're
Mhm.
fleeing prosecution. They're looking for a new life.
And they couldn't do it. They were stuck.
They were stuck.
And then these people come out and shoot the sheriff. I shot the sheriff.
But not the deputy.
See,
Well,
exactly. And
so,
that, that's a lot of people that come to Andes and come to the Catskills don't know about this amazing point in history that they had of where, these local people were sick and tired of being like pushed to their limits, to be held to, like, hey, we're kind of done with this. What do we do? Well, let's revolt. And they did, and they did it in kind of a
They
crazy way.
did, but you know what? There were smarter people that were out there, and they started building a political, because we had statehood now, and for the first time, the citizens could vote.
mhm.
So now somebody there's names in the history books about who started the organization of the Tin Horns and Calico people to get them organized, and then they'd get people elected to their state offices and stuff. So through a course of, I forget how many years, but I think it was 15 years of political wrangling, the state passed legislated a law that no leases can exceed the 99-year lease. Uh, and they put a maximum time on any new leases of being about 25 years. So the problem was a lot of the land speculators, the patentees, would try and sell the individual lots, because now they can't, their leases are going to expire. And now they're going to have, now what? So they try and sell lots. Some of the people were able to buy the individual farm lots if they wanted them, but many of the people had the ability just to walk away, because now we have legislation. You can't persecute these leaseholders anymore. You can't persecute their families anymore. So the legislation stopped that. And many of the patentees just threw their hands up, because none of them lived here, right? Except for maybe the Chancellor Robert Livingston, who had lived on his manor down in Claremont. But nobody else really lived here. Johannes lived here, but he went back to New York City, because that's where he was from to start with. His father-in-law. Lost my train of thought. But anyway, so what happened was they would just walk away,
Mhm.
leave that tract of land, and they said they were satisfied with the amount of money they got out of that lack of land for those couple of generations. But they're not going to go through the expense of creating deeds with attorneys and surveyors and filing deeds. They just walked away.
The Hardenbergh patentees walked away.
Yes. Yeah, the
Yeah.
great lot owners. And of course, now we're multiple generations
Yeah.
of heirs being
So did they make lots of money off of this? Did this, for the patentees, did they, on the human suffering that was inflicted on the people that lived here, farming for them and logging for them and doing all that hard work and paying their rent with chickens and hens and goats, did the patent holders' descendants fare well? Did they make millions off of this or not?
That's a damn good question, and I never considered that, or I never had any chance to, or took a chance to research that, and maybe I will. I know for a fact that there's title problems today, because there's no deed out of the patentee owner to a private owner. There were leases, but leases were expired, and people just walked away from it. So if you run title back today, well, that reminds me of another point. But if you run title back today, that 10-foot map I was talking about in our conference room, that is visited by, not so much anymore, but it used to have a lot of traffic coming in from title insurance and surveyors to look at where this particular property was, because there was no deed filed in the county clerk's office. And remember, the leases were never filed either. They were private property. So yeah,
Interesting.
that's still a problem. A lot of the much like the western part of New York State.
So one big question that I have is that with all this pattern, we're talking about the Hardenbergh area. How do the Goulds tie into this with Double Top and Graham Mountain? How do you know Jay Gould and stuff like that? How long ago did he say that this is his area and we're going to let people go here and stuff like that? And can we overthrow it? Is he on a lease? Is he 99? Is he 99 years lease up or what?
We worked for Kingdon Gould, the grandson of Jay
Oh,
Gould, and we
well then,
surveyed all their lands, and they have good title. They purchased everything.
outrageous. Damn it. I was thought the podcast could purchase their land. But...
Yeah. So Rick, while we're on the topic of the activity of surveying, I'm sure when you go out in the field today and do your survey work, it's using, electronic devices, maybe satellite enabled devices, and all sorts of modern technology are at your disposal. But how big of a task was it 200 and some years ago or 150 years ago, whenever they got around to surveying the Hardenbergh patent track? How hard was it to survey a 100-mile long or 30-mile long boundary line? And what did they use? I mean, you talk about epic bushwhacking, right? I mean, they have Indians in the area at the time, don't
Right.
they? Maybe mountain
Mountain
lions. I mean, like legit, they got a lot of stuff
Wolves.
going on. And what type of equipment did they have? How heavy is the equipment? How many people are on a survey crew? It just sounds like a huge task.
It definitely was. And when I do a presentation on the Hardenbergh patent, I bring period instruments with me, which are genuine instruments, the chains we were talking about before, and the compasses, staff compasses, and all that stuff. And then at the end of that presentation, if the weather's good, I'll take the attendees outside and I'll put together a survey crew, and then we'll use, within another hour period, we'll use all that equipment and do some surveying, which is quite an interesting exercise. But to get back to your question, when the surveyors went out in the late 1700s, early 1800s, they went out for the season, regardless of the weather, because there were very few roads. There were some Indian trails, some rudimentary roads. The streams and the rivers were highways also, but they would go out, and it's not unusual to see. I'm trying to think. I just looked at field notes and the business ledger by a surveyor who was doing the line between Great Lot 8 and Great Lot 7. And they went out for 30 some days. But if it was back when the Worcesters were out doing the original survey, they would be out for the entire season. So when the ice was finally out of the streams and before the first snows came in, and they would go out with a party of maybe 30 people. And that 30 people included the surveying crew and the surveyor, and then the camp cook, of course, and then a couple camp guys, and then some hunters, because they had to generate the food as they went, and a couple of donkeys, and they all kept books. They all kept general ledger about how much of what they were taking. And there's always a X number of barrels of rum. And then when they got back over here, they would put out what came back with them, because they wouldn't have to pay for that, right? The surveyor himself was hired X number of dollars, and then he would pay the staff going out to do the work with him. But when they got back, there was never anything mentioned about a barrel of rum being left over. Just kind of interesting.
Whole new meaning to post hike brews and bites.
Yeah, right.
So they, in order, like you talk of the chain, how long is the chain? how much does the chain weigh, and in general, what is this chain used for? Because I know it's a popular thing in surveying from long time ago.
From the mid to late 1600s, it's a measuring instrument, I guess is the best way to put it. It is a unit. A chain is a unit of measurement of 66 feet long. The chain is broken into 100 metal links that are thin, and they're 1/100th the length of the chain, which equals 66 feet. So if you were measured a distance of 1.5 chains, 1.5 times 66 would be 99 feet long. That's how long your measurement was. So the chain itself as a unit of measurement 66 feet, but because there's so much mountainous land here, unlike the UK or wherever it was manufactured, in this area they would break the chain in half at 33 feet, so that because if the land is going up a steep angle, right, all measurements are reduced down to the horizontal plane. So to do that, you have to break chain and level with a plumb bob as you go up the hill, so you get a more accurate distance.
Crazy. Yeah. So how heavy is this chain? I mean, these guys have to lug it around, but it whether it's 33 feet or 66 feet, is this like a 10-pound chain, a 50-pound chain?
They are. That's a good question. They are. I've got like 6 of them. And they're all 33 footers. So I would say they're probably like 6 pounds or something.
Oh, so that's not that bad. And
It's
then
not bad.
they have a compass that's on a tripod that they use to take bearings with.
Yeah, there's a compass on a wooden tripod, but also there's a staff compass, and a smaller compass on top that would be used in rough terrain also.
So I know when I go out bushwhacking, over the course of 5 or 10 minutes, if I'm not looking at my compass constantly, I'll wander off course quite a bit. What these guys, when they're out surveying, is it really to like survey a mile through the Catskills? How long would it take them to do something like that? A day?
I've seen surveyors' notes that record time and distance and all that stuff. And I'll see like the one of the great lot lines that comes up out of the Pikumus. They started on High Peak, just what is that, west of the Ashokan Reservoir, and started running that line. They had to run it all the way to the Delaware River. And they were doing upwards of 8 miles a day through the rough area.
Wow.
So, and that's a lot. I mean, you've got 3 or 4 axemen clearing the line. You have the instrument person, you have the surveyor, you have the chainman. There's a head chainman and a rear chainman. So that's what, 6, 7 people. And in the meantime, the hunters have to be out there gathering supplies and food. And then the camp guys have to be moving the camp. You know, you set up here, but as soon as you get up at sunrise, you got to break camp and head for the next area, roughly where you're going to be.
Yeah.
They were guessing about where the next camp was going to be.
It's like search and rescue stuff, basically.
So are you saying that every tree along that bearing line is taken down?
No, I'm not saying that, because remember, the forest was different.
Yeah.
Right. 200 plus years ago. And I've seen accounts where they would be following a trail or a rudimentary road and a hemlock fell. Well, the hemlock, 8 feet in diameter, 10 feet in diameter, 100 feet long. That takes a while to get all your stuff unpacked and get around that obstacle. Yeah.
Interesting.
Totally different.
Wow.
Speaking of interesting, I think Stash has got an interesting question.
I do. So, like with this patent, I mean, we're running on 200-300 years now. Is there any like legends, myths that you know of that still run around to this day? Like the Goulds have ghosts up on the Graham and Double Top Mountains. That's why they're not letting us up there. or the Goulds want to still fly helicopters up on the top. That's why they had the color top. But like, do you have any myths or legends that you've heard previously in the past, like couple hundred years, that still linger around today that you still can share?
I heard that the people who run the podcast inside the line
Yeah.
don't really exist.
Well, that's because the mountain lions ate us.
The DEC hired us and we're just AI robots.
There you go. Well, that's a point too, because if you AI the Hardenbergh patent, you're going to get a lot of wrong information.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to back up on, I'm sorry, I just made fun of your question.
Not all.
When you're doing historical land record research, you may be in the northern part of Greene County or the southern or central part of Greene County, and you're finding deeds, and then all of a sudden you don't find anything behind that. You have to remember that Ulster County was one of the original 12 counties in New York State, and it was huge. And 1800 was about when the state took over. They broke up all the counties, the counties, and made it was 12 to start with, and then it ended up being 62 now, I think it is, right? 62 counties. So if you're working in Greene County, you have to realize that pre-1800, it was Ulster County. Or if you're working in the north part of Greene County, it was Albany County. Because when the state of New York repartitioned the counties, it took a little bit off here and there. So Ulster County, I gotta find it so I do this right now. Sorry. So Ulster County was broken into Greene County, Delaware County, Sullivan County, and it greatly reduced the size. So 1/3 of the area of the patent, the 1.5 million acres, is in Ulster County today. 1/2 of the patent lies within Delaware County, and about less than 1/2 lies in Greene County. And a large extent it lies in the Sullivan County. So you have to be aware of that if you're doing any historical land record research.
Interesting.
I don't know of any legends or stuff like that. I know what my mother wrote about up in the Spruce Woods, and that's got a lot of spooky stuff in it. Maybe that book was...
She made a book about it?
Oh, she has a number of books out. But The Eagle Nester, if you want to read about the early inhabitants that came up from Carroll along a turnpike into the Eastkill Valley and made a settlement up there called Spruce Woods. That's a great read.
What was the name again? I'll put that in the show notes.
The Old Eagle Nester.
Eagle.
Yeah.
Eagle
and
Nester.
Pretty, based upon a lot of the family oral history.
Interesting. So, I don't know if Rick, I don't know if I have anything more to ask. Like, that's just phenomenal stuff along the patent. Just so much information that you can only cram into an hour or so and stuff like that. It's just crazy. Just like 1 million acres with months of people, just to have surveyors do this with 8 people is like, it just blows my mind that this could happen, especially back then when the communication was at a bare minimal, when doves would send people messages. It's crazy. Foxes. Let's fox them instead of fax them. But amazing stuff.
That was funny. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of history within the Hardenbergh patent that is not even touched upon. Joseph Brandt and his fort up in between Round Top and Catskill High Peak and all that stuff. Hundreds of stories that just have not been touched upon. So
that means hundreds of episodes that Rick is going to be on here. So fantastic. So last question: post hike brews and bites. Where do you like to go in the Catskills, Rick, that you want to give a shout out to get something to eat after you've done a hike or a survey or something like that? What is your local place besides Snyder's?
Yeah, right. The Spruceton Brewery up at the head of the Spruceton Valley. We love to stop there, especially if we're hiking in the area. And then the Woodstock Brewery, and of course Key and L's when we leave the Catskills formerly. But yeah, any of those places are fantastic. Any place up there is great, you know.
Yeah. So far, it's been so good. So I'm glad you enjoy that as well. So thank you for taking your time, Rick, to join us tonight. Really appreciate it. Had a great time learning about this. We'll have you on definitely again. And we'll book some more stuff about, bear pen and some more surveying stuff.
Yeah, that's a big issue too.
Dude, I've had so many different discussions on bear pen. I just can't get enough of it. I don't know. Tad is the same way. Tad, the story of bear pen.
I imagine the whole bear pen situation with the boundary dispute is in part a product of the Hardenbergh patent.
Oh, it definitely is. Down through the Great Lots, it definitely is, because the descriptions were so vaguely written.
Yeah.
And didn't, because a deed says conveys you 100 feet, doesn't mean you get 100 feet. There's a whole lot of things you have to look at before you define the length of that line.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of that bear pin stuff came from.
I'd love to hear about that, because that whole story is what resulted in no ski area today thriving on Bear Pen Mountain. I mean, you could hike up there now and find like a couple hundred condos, some chairlifts, a bunch of snowmaking equipment, and it'd be almost indistinguishable from Wyndham, Hunter, and Bel Air if there wasn't that boundary dispute. So that's pretty significant in terms of the nature and course of development. And the Catskills was a vague surveyor's description.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's outside the blue line, so you didn't have those protections either.
Yeah, true. All right. So thank you to the monthly supporters and monthly sponsors. Really appreciate you guys supporting the show, helping out the show. Also, thank you, everyone who's still listening. 191 episodes in, Rick Brooks talked to us about the Hardenbergh patent and much more stuff as well. And we had a great time. So, Rick, thank you for joining the show. Really appreciate it. Have a good night. We'll see you in the future.
That's it. See you in the woods.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey everyone, I just want to thank you for listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe and throw down a smooth review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform that you use. You can also check daily updates of the podcast, hikes, hiking news, and local news on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the official website of the show. Remember this, you gotta just keep on living in the Catskills, man. L-I-V-I-N.
Wicked.